Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 17th episode of Oakland Tobacconist. We are really happy to have you on, and this is a rather special and different live show than we've done in the past. In fact, we have our pipe night, which is tomorrow. We've just gotten several Peterson, Savenelli pipes in, and so tonight is more of a pipe interview. We got my pipe with me, one of them. This is a Peterson Irish Harp XL02, great pipe. Typically I smoke aromatic out of it, but I'm really looking forward to the conversation that we have ahead of us and the questions as well as the comments from all of you guys that we have for Joe. So if you are smoking a cigar or smoking a pipe, go ahead and let it down in the comments. I'd love to hear what you are smoking, what you're enjoying tonight, and also maybe what you are pairing with. Tonight, as usual, the signature here at Oakland Tobacconist, and having a bit of bourbon with this aromatic. Now, the aromatic tobacco I'm going to be trying tonight is really special. In fact, it's brand new here to the shop, and we are going to be featuring it during Pipe Night tomorrow. So, and I'm sure we'll be hearing some of the blend breakdown and all that from Joe, which will be momentarily. So drop in any comments that you have. If you are enjoying a pipe tonight, I would love to hear it. And tonight we have Vernon and Matt in here with us as well, finishing up cigars, and probably light up pipe later on. So a question I would have for all of you, feel free to drop it in the comments, is if you can remember, what is the first pipe tobacco that you ended up trying before the journey of pipe smoking? If you remember what that was. A lot of times when we hear, okay, what is the first cigar that you maybe had or enjoyed? Oftentimes it turns to Swisher Sweet or some sort of gas station cigar, as the norm is. For me, it was actually very similar on pipe tobacco. I think majority of a lot of people out there probably started on the same tobacco I did, which was Captain Black. And I don't smoke that anymore. But it was definitely different, definitely interesting. I ended up trying a cherry pipe tobacco, and it was a bit too sweet for me. So we got SoCal Pipe Smoker saying Captain Black Cherry. Well, there you go. Grocery store in at 1998. We started on this exact same pipe tobacco. Really interesting. Like I said, it's not necessarily something I'd probably go back to. And unfortunately, it kind of put me off cherry tobacco in the beginning because I thought it was too sweet, a little too harsh. We got Matt here saying a Highland Whiskey Pipe Tobacco. And the Highland Whiskey Pipe Tobacco, was it any good? Is it something you'd revisit?
I did.
He did revisit. So your first experience was much better than perhaps ours. SoCal Pipe Smoker, I don't know if it was something you enjoyed. Maybe that's just me. Matt says he was 22 from Dave's Pipes and Cigars. Dave's Pipes and Cigars. So, and at the time, I didn't know too much about pipe tobacco. I just wanted to try whatever I could. Picked up a pipe wherever I could and started that journey. With that, too, I will say that the pipe wasn't necessarily the best of quality. But also, the interesting thing is that I started smoking a pipe before I started smoking cigars. So, a bit of interesting as it was. I was 18 at the time in California. Before California was even more California than it is now. You could actually go into a shop at the age of 18, pick up a pipe tobacco, and purchase and try it. So, yeah, and we're going to be having Joe join us very shortly. Now, Joe is the rep out here in our territory for Peterson, Savenelli, and Rossi. Also, the new pipe tobacco blend that we have is also come from the same company, and it's really high quality. The if you have not smoked Peterson or Savenelli, I understand sometimes the price barrier can be somewhat difficult to get over, somewhat of a hurdle. However, it is the most user-friendly pipe experience that I've had. So you do have that quality, you do have that that craftsmanship behind it, and it's just smoking in Peterson is great. As I said previously, I'm going to be using my Peterson Irish Harp XL02, which is almost like the Lestrade shape in their Baskerville line. In their Sherlock Holmes line. And so it's kind of a smaller size than Lestrade, but the bowl size is great. When I was first getting into this, I know a lot of people have different types of pipes that they use, and I didn't really fully understand. For me, it makes the most sense. If I'm smoking something aromatic, I want to keep that aromatic to that pipe. If I'm smoking English, because of the strength behind that, I'll keep that separate as well. So I have a few pipes. The portfolio is getting a little bit larger. And for tonight, for those watching, we have a killer sampler pipe tobacco sampler, the first we've ever ran, which includes 3 amazing aromatics. One is the Watson, which is one of the most popular here at the shop. That is lane 1Q. Very nice, even, almost any day type of pipe tobacco aromatic. Really good. We also have, as we are in Oak Glen, we have the Percy, which is an apple, which is a great sweetness to it, good aromatic, and then Tonight's, which we'll be getting to as well. 3 different pipe tobaccos, 1 amazing price. It's almost a steal. Go to our website. If you click on the link in this video, that will take you to our website, and that is where you can pick up the sampler pack. There's not many. In fact, it's very limited supply. So if you'd like to pick one up, head on over to our website. We have VIP Brock, first cigar here at OGT. I believe that was the judge. And OGT Brock is actually here today. And so we're just getting Joe connected right here, and we're making sure we get this together. And I'm sure a lot of information, a lot of education is on the way, which I'm so excited for. So with that, if you can all please help me welcome Joe Fabian here to the show. Hey, how's it going, Joe?
Good, good, good. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Unfortunately, I'm not able to see you right now, and I don't know if it's the connection or if it's something going on with the streaming service.
I'm trying to check that out because my camera shows that it's working, and
okay,
it shows that the. What's that?
I was going to say, can you see me on your end?
Yeah, I could hear you. I heard the intro.
Okay, interesting. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's have you rejoin one more time. I'll go ahead and remove you from it, and then go ahead and try rejoining the link one more time.
Okay.
We're going to go ahead and try to get this together. So I'm going to go ahead and light up this tobacco for the first time. I've actually not tried it yet, and so I'm really excited to give it a whirl. Now, many, if you've seen the channel, if you've been here at the shop, you've heard me talk about the char light before. It's a 2 lighting process, getting the moisture out of the top layer of the pipe tobacco to get that ember back in. So that's what we're doing right now. Well, unfortunately, Joe, I'm not certain why the camera is not there. I wonder if maybe your device is not allowing access, maybe?
I've gone in every which way on the back end of this computer to give it access. And it says that it's allowed according to my Windows.
Okay. Well, that's all right. I can still hear you just fine. And we'll get the conversation going. It's buttery. It is very buttery. So that's gone out. The second char light is I'm going to go ahead and kind of give this a gentle push down with the tamp here to kind of flatten it out. There we are. And then I'm going to give it our second light here. Well, sorry about that, man. I'm not really sure why we don't have visual, but I can hear you okay.
I apologize. Yeah, we'll have to do this again in the future. And before we do, we'll get on there and play around with it, see if we can't figure out what's going wrong. Because my laptop says everything should be working.
Yeah, that is strange. I'm not sure why. But I would like to welcome you here to OGT Live, and thank you for joining us on the show.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
So I guess to kind of start off, before we really get into the intricacies of pipe tobacco and kind of the ceremony of lighting up tobacco within a pipe, what kind of got you into this industry and smoking pipes?
Originally, it was just a curiosity sort of thing. Some friends and I from high school had gotten interested in cigars pretty soon after high school and used to get together for it. And I looked at pipes and I was interested in them. And I bought my first pipe actually very shortly after high school. But I didn't really have the patience or really a mentor or anything to kind of help me along. And years later, I was getting sort of curious about it again, and I stopped at my local brick and mortar store in northeastern Pennsylvania, El Humidor, and met Dr. Gar, who at the time was the president of the United Pipe Clubs of America and ran the little pipe club we had there. And he sort of welcomed me in and really showed me the whole gambit and explained far more than I was able to observe on that first meeting. But he
Yeah.
piqued my curiosity enough to go back to Pipe Club. And
Okay.
once those guys kind of really showed me the way and showed me what I was doing, I had a much, much easier time with it. And I kind of caught the bug. I got into it and just never left.
Okay. Okay. Do you remember, kind of pose a question to some of our viewers. Do you remember what the first pipe tobacco was that you tried?
Yes. Well, when I first tried when I was 18 or 19, I can't quite remember what I tried back then, but I remember years later when I tried to, I guess you could say when I tried in earnest, I bought a tin of Patriot Flake by Dan Tobacco, which is an
Okay.
outfit from Germany, and that's a terrific, beautiful straight Virginia flake, very light.
Okay.
Fantastic tobacco, but probably one of the most difficult tobaccos a beginner could have tried to learn on.
Okay. Because when you say a flake, were you like flaking it off from like an actual brick, or was it in like long strips?
Long strips, yeah. When they produce a flake, typically they press it into that brick and then pre-slice it. And so it was a little round tin full of partially broken square chunks of tobacco that impressed together pretty tightly.
Okay. Okay. And Virginias, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, although they're sweet, they tend to burn a bit hotter. Is that right?
Yeah, it's actually one follows the other. And it's not so much that they burn hotter, the actual burning temperature of the tobacco isn't different, but rather sweeter tobaccos like that, tobacco leaves with a lot more natural sugar in them, can sometimes cause a mild chemical reaction in your mouth that makes your tongue sting. It makes your tongue sort of sore. They call it tongue bite.
Okay.
Usually, what's happening there is that there's too much moisture in the smoke. It's that you're smoking the pipe too hot for the Virginia. Now, something like Laudisi, that characteristic smoky flavored tobacco that gives English blends that particular flavor we associate with them, you can puff on Laudisi quite a bit harder and still not have
Okay.
problems with your mouth and the smoke than you can something like a straight Virginia.
Okay. Okay. And that's more of the sugars within the Virginia then.
Right, right, right. Yeah, the products from smoking them can turn very acidic on your tongue. So what pipe smokers usually call tongue bite is usually a very mild acid burn, like you get from eating too much salt and vinegar potato chips too quickly.
Okay. Okay. So from starting from something like that, and then now being kind of the territory manager out here in like Arizona and California with a pretty large company, how did you come to get in association with Peterson, Savenelli, and Rossi and such?
I was a huge fanboy for our tobacco company. Still am a huge fanboy, but I guess that changes a little bit when you're paid to be. But I was a big fanboy of Cornell Diehl pipe tobaccos. And I had written about them quite a bit online, had written a lot of reviews, had gotten really interested in them, and at one point had become casual acquaintances with a rep for Laudisi, the company that I work for, the distributor of all these brands.
Okay. Okay.
And he had said a couple of things on one of the forums about the fact that they were looking for a rep, and I reached out to him to ask about it, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we actually need somebody who can really talk tobacco." And so I threw my resume at him, not really thinking that this was a real thing. And here I am. They hired me out of an Amazon warehouse.
Nice. And how long ago was this?
It was March 2015.
Okay. Okay. So since then you've been kind of in this territory area. And what is it about Cornell and Diehl that really grabbed your attention?
Well, I've been smoking pipes for quite a while when I really started to get acquainted with Cornell and Diehl. The first time I actually tried a few blends from Cornell and Diehl, I didn't like them a whole lot, but I was a very new pipe smoker and I didn't really know what I was trying, and I was still smoking much too quickly. When I learned to slow down my smoking cadence and discovered specifically the Cornell and Diehl blends that had been blended by Bob Bernowski, who was a blender for C&D, or at least a very close friend of C&D that did a lot of blending for them back in the day. And he had done a lot of Burley blends. A lot of his work was sort of an homage to classic American style blends that were popular in the 60s and 70s.
Okay.
And I encountered those blends and completely fell in love with Burley as a tobacco component. And even now, 6 and change years later, Burley is still predominantly what I smoke.
Okay. Now, I think that brings up a pretty interesting conversation piece as far as you saying learning how to slow down and such like that. What kind of cadence did you find that was kind of the sweet spot that you needed to locate?
I can't remember what it is back then that slowed me down so much. Dr. Gar was a champion slow smoker. Guys get together and have contests. They all get the same pipe and the same amount of pipe tobacco. For anybody watching who doesn't know, with the same amount of pipe tobacco and the same pipe and certain rules about what you're allowed to do to your pipe and whatnot, you light your pipe once with everybody else, and then you see how long you can keep your pipe burning. And guys go 2 hours with this. I think the record holder is pushing 3.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a whole sort of sport around it. And so Doc was always encouraging me to learn how to slow down and slow down and slow down.
Okay.
What I generally tell pipe smokers when I'm out visiting shops and they ask me what's the ideal smoking cadence, I tell them to sit down in a quiet place where they could really focus on their pipe with their evening bowl after dinner at home or something, and light their pipe, start smoking, slow it down and slow it down and slow it down and slow it down until it goes out. Let it go out. Then relight it again and do that again. And each time pay very careful attention to the way the smoke tastes, the way the texture of the smoke changes as it gets close to going out. When you can, using your mouth, your palate, and the amount of smoke you're getting through your pipe, get it as close to going out as possible without letting it go out. That's your perfect smoking cadence.
Okay.
The cooler, the better.
So you're saying it can sometimes completely vary depending on who's smoking the pipe then?
Yeah, and what blend is in the pipe. Some blends can smoke a little slower than others. We do a lot of things that are in a ready rub format where we effectively press a flake and then tumble it out again so that it falls to pieces. And that leaves some of the little bits and ribbons of tobacco still stuck together. And because it's denser, that'll slow the smoke down. So some blends want to be smoked a little bit faster. Some blends want to be smoked a little bit slower.
Okay.
And it's sort of experimenting with it and finding the sweet spot for each blend, and even sometimes just smoke to smoke by slowing down and paying attention to your pipe bowl to bowl.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and I think that, I mean, part of the fascinating thing about pipe smoking, I think, is the process. I mean, the big difference, at least for me, with cigars and pipes is that oftentimes when the cigar, you light it up, you relax, you enjoy it, and it's not really something you think about. Whereas the process of pipe smoking is rather methodical. I mean, you have your tamp, and then you have to keep it lit, and then you're tamping it down or aerating it, such like that. And I think it's really rewarding for people who want to basically find their own cadence and find their own process that works for them. Would you agree on that, or do you think it varies?
Absolutely. No, I think that's a big part of the appeal to pipe smoking. One thing I hear from cigar guys who don't like pipes is, no, I can't be bothered to fiddle around with all that. I just want to cut it, light it, and go. Where the pipe smoker, most pipe smokers that I know, are in part drawn to it because you have to fiddle with it. It's not just something you can sit back and enjoy. It's something that there's a ritual to it that draws you in, and that kind of helps relax you. I always like to say, with a new pipe smoker, trying to figure out how to get your pipe to smoke right will take up so much of your attention that you'll forget to be stressed out about bills and work and whatever else is going on in your life.
Yeah. Now, you had mentioned Cornell and Diehl, and we've talked about their blends, which is one of the new aromatics we brought in, which is the Nutty Irishman. Do you mind telling us a little bit of what this is made up of and kind of the evolution of this blend?
I don't know much about the evolution of the blend because Nutty Irishman is one of those blends that goes deep, deep back into Cornell and Diehl history. And our founder, Craig, kept exhaustive notes, but notes I think only Craig could really interpret. So I don't know the whole story about how Nutty Irishman came to be. I will say, though, that those burley blends, I'm a non-aromatic smoker primarily. There are some aromatics I really enjoy, but I enjoy unflavored, unaugmented burleys the most. And the burley that's in Nutty Irishman, I think, is what makes it special as a blend. And it's the very same burley that we use in our non-aromatic offerings. There's sort of a myth, I hope it's a myth, going around that aromatic tobaccos are made from sort of B-grade bottom shelf tobaccos because the aromatic flavoring is going to cover up any deficiencies. And that, I don't think anybody blends that way. I hope nobody blends that way. Cornell and Diehl certainly doesn't. Burley tobaccos are very, very full-bodied, high nicotine content with a very lush, thick, kind of creamy smoke quality to them. And in Nutty Irishman, that works beautifully because aromatic tobaccos are typically made with very mild tobaccos without a lot of body to them. And so with Nutty Irishman, you get a nice, thick, dense smoke like a lot of cigar smokers might expect or appreciate, but it's still strongly scented, strongly flavored with that sort of Irish cream, nuts and butterscotch top note that it has on there.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, one of the first things that lighting it up, I mean, we got Matt here with us, is saying it's very buttery. I definitely get the creaminess on it as well. And you're right, the smoke output is a pretty dense smoke output. It's not very wispy. But the kind of like, I don't know, like pastry element to it, kind of like that like buttery, creamy pastry element is really nice. And also in this blend, would you say a lot of that creaminess then is that burley in it? Because it's a mixed blend, right? Or is it a straight burley?
No. It's a very mixed blend. There's some Virginias and a really nice black Cavendish that's actually made from cigar leaf, which contributes to that smoke output and that fullness as well. Okay.
Now, you being in the pipe tobacco industry, have you been able to go to some of like the farms and the areas of growing and kind of witness some of the harvesting of the tobacco?
I've never gone in my capacity as a rep. However, out where headquarters is, the first year I worked for this company, I sort of took accounts all over the place. The second year they gave me the Pacific territory, and it was the third year that I actually moved out here to Phoenix. So for those first 2 years, I worked at company headquarters in South Carolina, and I got to pass tobacco fields on my way to work every day.
Wow.
And so I never went out to the field as a pipe industry person, but I would stop and sometimes chat with the farmers and look at the plants and learn about it, because out in the Carolinas, that's it. You're steeped in it. You're immersed in it. You know what I mean? That's where tobacco comes from.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And are you able to like visit many shops in your territory, or are you staying pretty busy at home base?
Oh, no. Now I'm finally traveling again. My last trip before recently was the very end of February 2020. And when everything got messy, I switched over to being home full time. But now I'm getting back out on the road. I just got back from Colorado a few weeks ago, and it was wonderful. It's so good to start seeing my retailers again.
Yeah. Now, this is probably a difficult question to answer, so I'll kind of move it to one side. Do you often find in your pipe collection, do you gravitate towards a specific maker, or is it specific shape? Like what is your normal like go-to routine? Do you have a go-to, or do you just switch it up as the days go by?
I don't have any particular go-to, but That is a symptom of having probably 70 or 80 pipes at this point, and
Okay.
who
Wow.
knows how many blends of tobacco. I mean, I've got an old steam trunk from a convent that's bigger than most coffee tables, and that's full of tobacco. And then I've got an Army footlocker that's also full of tobacco, all sealed up and aging. So I'm a little all over the map. When I joined the company, kind of ironically, I guess, most of my collection was already Savenelli, but
Okay.
part of that came out of being a pipe smoker on a shoestring budget and realizing that in Savenelli, I could get a really good pipe that smokes very nicely for not a lot of money. Even now with the Rossi line, you can get something made by Savenelli with the minimum 2-year air-cured briar, same thing, same factory, all done in-house, and you're talking about under $100.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that was a big part of the equation for me. And now that I've been in the industry for a little over 6 years now, I've just switched over to collecting pretty high-end Savenellis. Now I've got some Petersons that I've kind of gotten into. I've gotten really interested in collecting Petersons since my company bought Peterson in 2018. And then
Okay.
outside from that, the rest of the collection is sort of a hodgepodge. There's a good amount of Castello in there, which is a very high-end Italian maker, and then a lot of pipes from independent pipe carvers, sort of artisan guys that operate
Okay.
out of their own garages and basements.
Okay. Cool. And so I guess that's because for me, a large portion of like my time and research has been more cigar based. And so, I mean, I started smoking a pipe before I smoked cigars, but still it's a pretty decent learning curve for me. So for example, we're talking about a bunch of different makers, and you said Rossi with the 2-year air cured and such. What is the process that separates something like Savenelli and Peterson aside from kind of your average, maybe in the olden days, drugstore or grocery store pipe that you might be able to pick up? Like, what sets it apart?
The very first thing, of course, is having a brand. And when I mean having a brand, I'm not talking about a marketing angle as much as with a brand, you have somebody who is standing behind the quality of that pipe. If you buy a
Okay.
Savenelli or Peterson and it's a terrible pipe, you have a company that is really invested in making sure that every pipe with that brand name on it smokes well. If you buy a pipe that doesn't have a brand name on it, who cares if it doesn't smoke well, right? There's
Right.
nobody's got skin in the game on a pipe without a name on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For
Okay.
Peterson and Savenelli both, and what you should get with any high quality manufacturer. You know, we're not the only high quality manufacturers out there, but what you should always get with a high quality manufacturer is straight drilling. That is, the holes in the pipe are drilled well and go exactly where they need to. Poorly
Okay.
drilled pipes have a lot of places where the smoke can swirl around and create turbulence, which means you're going to get condensation, you're going to get moisture. It's going to be harder to keep the pipe lit. You're going to get what pipe smokers call gurgling, which is moisture coming up the stem, which of course tastes terrible, ruins the smoking experience.
Right.
The other thing, which is more subtle, is the quality of the wood itself, where it was harvested from, whether the trees were in a place that make good briar bowls, and of course that air curing that I mentioned. Briar, once it's cut, needs to sit and cure for a long time to let the saps and resins crystallize off into inert substances and work their way. All the moisture has to work its way out of the wood. Otherwise,
Okay.
when you go to smoke your pipe, it's going to be bitter. It's going to taste like tree sap because that wood wasn't given long enough for the stuff that makes those nasty tastes to work their way out of it. And that
Okay.
having wood that is consistently cured and consistently well drilled, consistently shaped, I think is the biggest thing that you get when you step away from no name sort of basket pipes and into a proper brand.
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, so we had just another viewer just join on, Adam, who's a regular here and an avid pipe smoker, and actually just picked up the Peterson System Smooth Ebony. And so a question that I will actually ask on his behalf, as well as mine and anyone else watching, that concept of system, what is the Peterson system in that model?
The system design, if you take the stem off of a system pipe and look down into the mortise where the stem plugs in, you'll see a deep well drilled down in, and then a smaller air hole, draft hole, that comes off the side of that well and goes down to the bottom of the bowl. The idea is that as you smoke that pipe, earlier where I said an inconsistency in that drilling will cause the smoke to drop some of its moisture out into the pipe. The idea behind a Peterson system pipe is that the smoke enters that little chamber and some of that moisture is allowed to work its way out of the smoke. It can condense on the side of the pipe and drip down into that well, giving you a much cooler, drier smoke coming up the stem.
Okay. So is there another step to the cleaning process on something like a system pipe that is unlike a traditional?
Well, with any step, because you get the same thing with, for instance, the Savenelli balsa filter system. There's a little bit of a chamber in there too. And the extra step that you should be taking with any pipe is, once the pipe is fully cool after smoking, pull the stem off and use bent over pipe cleaners or a couple of Q-tips and clean everything out inside that pipe. Now, that's crucial for all pipes. Even in a completely plain Jane straight billiard pipe with a normal mortise and tenon and a normal stem, you'd still want to pull that stem out and get a pipe cleaner down to sort of the shoulders of where that stem plugs in to clean all that out, because stuff can build up in there. And especially if you're back east and you live in a more humid environment, that stuff can turn sour and ruin the flavor of your pipe. So
okay.
System pipes and Savenelli balsa pipes, because of that chamber in there, you have to get in there and clean them out extra thoroughly. But it's my observation that most folks don't keep their pipes as clean as they ought to anyway. So I kind of put that out as a general blanket recommendation. Please clean your pipes extra well. They'll taste better.
And what would you say is the frequency in which you should clean your pipe?
After every smoke.
Okay. Really? After every bowl then?
Well, after every smoke, or if you smoke the same pipe multiple times a day, as I often do, after every smoke, I'll put a pipe cleaner down the stem and let the pipe cool off so that pipe cleaner can soak up some of the extra moisture down in there. And then I might pull that pipe cleaner out, swab the bowl out quickly, repack it, and smoke it again. If I smoke that pipe multiple times in the day, at the end of the day, when I know I'm not going to smoke it anymore, then I'll pull the stem out and clean the whole pipe out. So after every smoke or at the end of every day, if you smoke your pipe more than a single time in the same day. But I would never, ever, ever tell anybody to leave a pipe dirty overnight.
Okay. Yeah.
I've made the mistake of going out to Chicago Pipe Show or going out to visit a pipe club somewhere in my sales territory, and we have a great night and we're up super late and I smoke a lot and I put my pipes back in their bag and then I forget about them. And I go home the next day and my briefcase sits somewhere with my dirty pipes in it. And man, when I fire those pipes up again, I can tell that I did something I shouldn't have,
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, and a question that I get often, and I don't know if it's more of just like kind of what we were talking about early in the process of kind of finding your cadence and finding your speed. A question I get often is, okay, I'm really enjoying this, but I'm still getting a lot of tongue bite. What would your advice be as far as like to kind of cut down on the tongue bite, to kind of alleviate some of that acid that you were talking about on the tongue? Are there techniques to that? Is that a large portion of what you're smoking, or what would you say?
It depends on the smoker, and I'd have to look at what they're doing to really know where they're running afoul. I will say that there are 3 very common mistakes that I think lead to a lot more tongue bite than people would have otherwise. And the first one is just smoking too quickly.
Okay.
Especially if a smoker is coming over from cigars. Compared to a pipe, a cigar like when I smoke a cigar, I do enjoy cigars, but when I smoke a cigar, compared to a pipe, I feel like I'm gulping smoke. it feels like the difference between sipping a cask strength whiskey, since you're enjoying a bourbon right now, and
Mhm.
having a craft beer. If you take a big
Okay.
gulp, maybe even too big a gulp of craft beer, it's not going to hurt you. You know, you might miss some of the subtleties if you drink it too quickly, but there's no real
Right.
cost for drinking a beer too quickly other than getting drunker than you mean to. With drinking a cask strength liquor like a scotch or a bourbon, if you pour yourself a glass of Booker's and then slam it back, it'll let you know that you've done something you weren't supposed to do.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
you
Okay.
know, tiny,
No.
tiny
Yeah.
little sips. Yeah, tiny little sips is the way to go. If you smoke your pipe a little bit hotter and it's comfortable for you and you enjoy it, well, that's fine. As long as you're not overheating your pipe and risking the briar, you're all right. But generally, smoking too fast is always at the top of the list. The next
Okay.
thing on the list is packing too tight.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
I smoke. I smoke. I tend to pack much more loosely than is average. I know that I pack loose compared to most people. Packing loose means that sometimes you have to slow your smoking cadence down a little bit, but a looser pack, I find it's easier to smoke it slowly. When a pipe is overpacked, you have to sort of fight with it and puff on it to keep it lit. Any guys who have ever tinkered with old cars or motorcycles and played with a carburetor will know when you get your fuel air mixture too rich, when you're feeding your engine too much gas, you have to idle it really fast. You have to stay on that throttle and make the engine run hard in order to keep it running. Otherwise, the gasoline clogs it up. It has too much
Right.
fuel.
Right.
Pipe is the exact same way.
Okay.
It's just like a carburetor. You've got to get that fuel and air mixture down right. And that too tight pack won't cause the tongue bite itself, but it causes bad smoking habits, which will lead to that tongue bite.
Okay. Okay. So what when you say you pack a bit more loose than the average smoker, what is your process? Do you do like the three finger method, or is it more just kind of whatever you feel like, or
I wish my video was working. You know, I ironed a shirt and everything for this, Eric.
oh no,
uh,
well, and before we get to that, I even get to ask what are you lighting up tonight?
I'm smoking. We just released a tobacco called 8 State Burley. It's a very limited run. It's a blend of Burley's Virginia, Black Cavendish, and some very special, very old Turkish tobaccos from the Middle East.
Okay.
The pipe
Wow.
industry calls a certain genre of tobaccos Turkish or Oriental.
Yeah.
That Oriental word is old enough that it's back when people referred to the Middle East as being the Oriental, the eastern end of
Right.
things.
Right. Right.
But that's a broad strokes term for tobaccos that are typically grown in those arid Mediterranean climates.
Okay. Okay. So when you packed your pipe tonight, what was the process that you did?
I reached in with my first finger, middle finger, third finger, and thumb and picked up sort of a loose claw full of tobacco. Without squeezing it or pinching it together, I placed that ball of tobacco up against the top of my pipe and just sort of rocked it back and forth until I could feel that tobacco get to the bottom of the bowl without any pressure at all. I let go, holding my pipe over my tin so that the excess tobacco fell away, and my pipe looked like it had a big ball of tobacco stuck to the top, like a wild haircut. And then
Okay.
I just used my thumbs to push that down until it's 1/8 of an inch or so under the rim of the bowl. And that's it. I don't ever push my tamper down into the pipe when I'm packing. I don't ever let my fingers go past that 1/8 an inch mark into the pipe when I'm packing, so that the tobacco is a little bit denser up at the top, but loose throughout the bowl.
Okay. Okay. And I mean, you had said kind of for some of the people that like participate in contests and such that it's a one light process. I've always heard the two light process, the char light, the second light. Um, what would you advise on lighting?
I think with lighting, you sort of have to give up uh, something that's so systematized. When you toast the foot of a cigar, sometimes you toast it once, sometimes you toast it twice, but you know that what you're going for is that nice uniform gray and white ash cap on the bottom of your cigar, so that know that you have a nice symmetrical, uniform cherry that's burning down your cigar the whole time.
Right.
With a pipe, you're doing the same thing. The bowl of a pipe is even shaped similarly to a cigar. And so what you want to do when you're lighting it is, without overheating your pipe, slowly, carefully, mindfully, light the tobacco, give it a very gentle tap, light the tobacco, give it a gentle tap. The pipe is ready to go towards the end of the bowl when the top of your tobacco inside your pipe has that same uniform gray and white thing going on that the bottom of a well-lit cigar has. And it's for the same reason. You get that nice even cherry so that the whole kind of surface of the tobacco is burning. And then that ash cap also acts as a little bit of insulation for your cherry,
right.
And sort of a diffuser for the air that's being pulled down into the pipe so that you're not overheating one side without burning the other. The same way a cigar can sometimes canoe on you or tunnel down the middle instead of burning evenly.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and partly when you're lighting, you're drawing the moisture out of the tobacco, correct?
To some extent, yeah. You also get moisture just as a product of combustion. You know, moisture is a part of smoke. Even if you're burning wood in a wood stove, you get moisture. And so managing that moisture means not burning too much tobacco at once. When you asked earlier about people who are getting a lot of tongue bite, the third piece of advice I always like to tell people is to dry their tobacco a little bit. Tobacco is purposely manufactured a little on the wet side, and that's so that as you carry it around in your tin or tobacco pouch, you go into it or you get it out of the bulk jar when you go to visit the pipe shop, that tobacco doesn't dry out, become bone dry on you before you get the chance to smoke it. It's also kept a little extra wet because it ages much better that way. The transformation of aging needs some moisture to take place. So when you go to smoke, take some of your pipe tobacco out of whatever you smoke, whatever you keep it in, and lay it out on a little dish or napkin and let it get some air for 5 or 10 minutes and experiment with smoking a little bit drier, smoking it a little bit wetter. Oftentimes people who are having a problem with tongue bite and excess moisture can clear that up by getting their tobacco a little bit drier before it even goes into their pipe. Okay.
Yeah. Well, and again, this is all, I mean, the conversation back and forth, it's all part of the process. And I think that's why it's rewarding for people who like it. SoCal Pipe Smoker had mentioned earlier, slow down to me. And it's still an experimental phase for me on many regards of kind of finding, it seems almost like when I try a new pipe tobacco for the first time, I don't know it yet. And so I don't really know how it smokes. And so sometimes it's a learning curve even for myself to kind of figure out what is my cadence on this? How do I keep it lit? How do I keep it going? And how wet is it as well?
Yeah, absolutely. It's part of the draw of pipe smoking is experimenting and figuring it out. You know, nobody would say to a fly fisherman, why do you bother fiddling with all of this? Why don't you just go buy flies at Walmart like a normal person, right? Part of the point of tying flies and being a fly fisherman is all of the fiddling around and all of the figuring it out. And that's really how pipe smoking is for us as well. That's right. That's got to be part of the draw, or it might not be the hobby for you, you know?
Right. And part of that, I know for like the hobby of cigar smoking, for me, a big element to me was the concept of aging cigars, like bringing a cigar to reach its peaking moment and experimenting what those years are if you can age it in your humidor. With pipe tobacco, you've mentioned several times with aging. What would be your advice on how to properly age a pipe tobacco?
Put it in a glass mason jar, seal it as tight as you can, and then don't touch it until you want to smoke it. If you're buying one of the Cornell Diehl style cylindrical tins with the hard metal seal, then it's already ready to go. Okay. If you're buying one of the European style tins, like our Savenelli tobacco comes in, sometimes those will stay sealed for a long, long time without a problem. There are a lot of those around from the 80s and 90s where the seal failed at some point and the tobacco got dried out. So sometimes they're fine. Sometimes you may want to transfer them over to the jar. Like I said, the Cornell and Diehl tin styles are good as they are. If you buy tobacco in bulk and you want to try aging a small amount, mason jar is the way to go. I even know some guys who have gone so far as to put paraffin wax over their mason jars to make sure that the seal absolutely cannot fail. Some of those guys are keeping that tobacco for 20 years to age it too. So I understand the extra step. That's not a step I've bothered with in a long time.
In cigar language, like oftentimes people will be like, "Well, wait for the peak year, and then we'll have a downturn." Is pipe tobacco the same? Like it hits a certain amount where it's really good, and then it starts losing some of its flavor, or is it something where you can age indefinitely? Like, what's your experience been?
It depends on the components. Some components age forever. I definitely think there is an over-aging time for most blends, and I think that a lot of folks get so drawn into the romance of aging stuff that a lot of guys, there's a lot of stuff that people have told me was brilliant that I thought was way overaged. I opened up a 25-year-old tin of Comfort, or 20-year-old tin of Comfort by Cornell and Diehl at Chicago Pipe Show a few years ago, and I shared it around. It's my ritual at the Chicago Pipe Show is to take a really old tin of tobacco and open it to share with everybody. I think a lot of pipe smokers do that. And everybody who tried some of that Comfort was really grateful and told me it was absolutely brilliant, which I was happy for because I couldn't stand to smoke the stuff myself. The Virginias had gotten very, very vinegary. The flavor had thinned out quite a bit. The burley had lost a lot of its oomph, a lot of its punch. And, it just wasn't a good blend for me. Comfort with 2 years age on it is amazing. 5 years age on it is amazing. 10 years would probably be really great. 20 was just way too much.
Gotcha. Okay. Because oftentimes when people, the most common question I get is, who is a cigar smoker? And then they'll start moving towards the pipe, and they'll say, "Hey, should I put the pipe tobacco in my humidor?" And typically, I'm telling them no, because of the quality of pipe tobacco and the sort of aromatic blend, or if it's a flavored blend, it will overpower the aroma of your cedar and your cigars and impart itself into your cigars. And so with that, pipe tobacco doesn't really necessarily need a humidification if it's sealed properly, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And that.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no. Go ahead.
The best long-term pipe tobacco storage device money could buy is the humble mason jar.
Okay.
It really is. Now, pipe tobacco pouches are really nice to have. You don't want to. Nobody wants to go walking around with a messenger bag filled with 5 or 6 clunky mason jars, right? So having a couple tobacco pouches to take out what you want to smoke and share that day is a really nice thing to have. But if you've got a shelf or a drawer somewhere, just a tightly sealed mason jar is a great long-term storage idea for pipe tobacco. The only difference between tobacco you're aging and tobacco you're actively smoking from is that when you open that jar, you interrupt and permanently change the pipe tobacco aging process, because part of what happens over time is that tobacco slowly ferments, and that uses up all the oxygen in that jar, so that the rest of the fermentation takes place without oxygen. And so the minute you crack that jar and exchange the air inside that jar, you sort of interrupt and change the aging process, which is very different from cigars, where you really have to open up your humidor once in a while and let some fresh air in there, let that air cycle through. You can't keep cigars sealed forever. So pipe tobacco, it's a little bit different.
Okay. Now, with pipe tobacco, do you think that flavored blends, ones that are very aromatic, let's say we take a cherry blend, do they age as well, or is it mostly English and natural, like kind of burley and stuff, that do a better job at that?
It really depends. And part of what depends on is the way the aromatic pipe tobacco is put together. If you have an aromatic pipe tobacco made with high quality flavorings where the blend is sort of constructed in a way that the blender wants you to really get into the flavors of those tobaccos as well as the aromatic topping, then you might get some really nice benefit from aging. Cornell Diehl has a blend called Chocolate Cavendish, which is just a burley and Virginia base with a mild chocolate top note on it. I have some jars that I've set back that are about 5 years old now, and I cracked one open a while back, and it was great. The chocolate was still there, but I could tell that the burleys and Virginias had aged nicely.
Okay.
If I was to get a much more powerful aromatic, like Nutty Irishman, for example, and age it, I might not notice the changes as much. It'll get a little smoother. It'll probably taste sweeter without being saccharine, but the benefits from aging aren't really going to be all that noticeable simply because that top note is by design a lot more powerful on that blend.
Okay.
Tobaccos, though, are really playing a texture role rather than a flavor role. You know what I mean?
Right. And so question we have from Adam is wondering if you smoke different tobaccos out of different pipes, or do you mix different tobaccos in the same pipe? Do you try to keep single blends, or is it kind of just vary?
What I will often do is when I open up a tin of tobacco that I'm really interested in, I'll take one or two pipes out of my collection and dedicate them to just that blend until I've emptied out that tin or jar.
Okay.
The flavors will build up. On the fourth or fifth bowl, I'll notice a lot more complexity out of those blends than I did on the first in those pipes.
Okay.
Past that, I just dedicate pipes to sort of broad genres. Your pipes that have blends with Latakia in them should stay separate from the blends, or the pipes that smoke, say, Virginia and Burley blends that don't have Latakia and don't have top notes. And then your blends for smoking topped aromatics with a lot of added flavor are sort of a third genre of pipes themselves. And you can get fiddly and start going down further into that. Heavy Latakia and light Latakia, heavy Perique and light Perique. And that's something that has more to do with your palate and how persnickety you want to be about it than really hard set rules. But if you smoke Latakia in a pipe and then turn around and smoke a mild Virginia Perique or even a fairly full-bodied Burley blend, you'll still get a lot of that Latakia flavor. Same thing with aromatics, as you mentioned it before.
Right.
And so
right.
For starters, if you have 3 pipe flavors, Latakia, not Latakia, and not aromatic, and aromatic, that will be enough to really get you going down the road. And whether you break it up further than that, by the time you get to that point, your palate will let you know.
Okay. Yeah, no, I know for me personally, when I first started out, I had one pipe, so I smoked everything out of it. And I started noticing in lighter aromatics that tend to be more sweeter or more mild, if I had previously smoked English out of it, or a Latakia heavy blend, then it definitely started manipulating the taste, and it was much more different to differentiate between that. It was blending all together. So I know that I've heard of some people being sticklers in the sense that I only smoke certain blends out of this pipe. I would say, I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, for someone who is kind of getting into it, if you have the ability to do that, sure, but it's not always accessible, ready to hand to have 17, 18 different pipes and smoke one blend in every single one.
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, even with as many pipes as I own, I definitely have more jars of tobacco than I have pipes to devote to those blends. But it's nice, like this pipe that I'm smoking right now, I wish I could show it to you guys because it's beautiful. My supervisor actually picked it out for me. This pipe that I'm smoking right now, I just started breaking it in when I opened up this tin of 8-state Burley. And this pipe won't get anything else in it until that 8-state Burley is done. But when it is done, I'll move this pipe on to another Burley or Virginia blend without a ton of Perique in it.
Okay.
And that's how it will go. One thing I will say to new pipe smokers is corn cobs are your friend.
Okay. And what's the thinking behind that?
Missouri Meerschaum corn cob pipes are a terrific smoke and they're very inexpensive pipes. And so it's an easy way, I hate to see guys struggling with owning a dozen really inexpensive sort of low quality pipes when they could instead have one really nice briar like you're smoking and a handful of corncob pipes and still have that diversity in their pipe collection. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, definitely. We have a question from Gus saying, what does it mean when tobacco is referred to as just air cured leaf?
Air cured indicates usually that it's a burley.
Okay.
Pipe tobacco uses a diversity of curing methods. With burley pipe tobacco, the leaves are harvested. Sometimes they're left on the stalk. Sometimes they're stripped as leaves and hung up. But they're just given a shady place with a lot of airflow to let the air dry that leaf out and cure it.
Okay.
That's different from, say, Laudisi, which is smoked for between 5 and 6 months over cold smoke, Kentucky fire cured, which is only smoked for a couple of days over hardwood, or Virginias that are flue cured, that is, they're cooked with heat but without the presence of smoke. There's even sun cured tobaccos. Those Oriental or Turkish tobaccos that I mentioned before are very small. The leaves look almost like tea leaves. They're only ever 3 or 4 inches long. And
Okay.
those are cured in the sun, where the heat of the sun can do some of the work, but it's still partially air cured as well. So whenever
Okay.
you see air cured leaf, that indicates that there's a burley. And sometimes you'll see light air cured leaf, which means it's air cured and then more or less as it is, or dark air cured leaf, dark burley, which is much more similar to a cigar process where it's air cured first and then put through a secondary fermentation process in piles or stacks, much like cigars.
Okay. Okay. Now, a question that I have for myself is, and I normally ask this of most manufacturers or people we talk to, outside of kind of the brand that you represent in Cornell and Diehl and such like that, are you smoking other people's other blends from other companies? And if so, do you have like three or four different pipe tobaccos that really stand out to you?
That became a much more difficult question for me to answer this year because my
Okay.
company got a contract with Gawith Hogarth and Company from Northern England to start carrying their tobaccos as well. And that Gawith Hogarth tobaccos, when I got hired for this job, one of my interviewers asked me if there was any brand other than Cornell and Diehl that I'd want to rep. And Gawith and Hogarth immediately came out of my mouth. I've loved their tobaccos, but now that's my brand too. Outside of my own brand, outside of my own stuff, though, McBaron is brilliant. I think McBaron produces some wonderful, wonderful tobacco. One of my guys in Colorado at Edwards and Englewood gave me a sample of their Nicotina Rustica blend, which blew me away. Absolutely blew me away. I love their Old Dark Fired. I love it most in its ready rub format. And their Golden Extra is also a terrific tobacco.
Okay. And because I'm familiar with like Nicotina Rustica only from what I've heard on the cigar end. Nick Melillo from Foundation, whom you might be familiar with, he's originally blended for Drew Estate the Nica Rustica or Nica Rustica, which is a broadleaf cigar. But he went into the history of how Native Americans would smoke Nicotinum Rustica, which was basically like a highly concentrated form of tobacco. I don't know if you've heard this before.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a different species, same genus.
Okay. So what is the process that their blend, Nicotina Rustica? What exactly is in that blend?
I don't actually know. I know from my palate that there's got to be Virginias, Burleys, and Dark Fired in addition to the Rustica. I can taste some Dark Fired in there. I can taste the Virginia and Burley characteristics. It's got some sweetness from the Virginias. The Rustica, it's flake pressed. So McBaron uses a steam pressing method for a lot of their flakes, where the tobaccos are steamed for a certain amount of time, and then it's pressed, and that marries the flavor of the leaves together, which produces a wonderful smoke. Cornell Diehl doesn't do any steam pressing at all. We don't have any steam presses.
Okay.
And steam pressing imparts a really interesting and unique characteristic on a blend, and it marries the leaves together a lot more. The flavors of the leaves combine and blend together more than they would in a cold press like what we do. And unfortunately, that means that what exactly McBaron put in that blend and how they did it is much more mysterious than it might be otherwise.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Well, and another question is, how many pipes or how many bowls would you say that you on average smoke a day?
Oh, that varies so much, and it's varied so much over the course of my career.
Okay.
I am religious about not inhaling my pipes. I always tell people there's no taste buds in your lungs. And I am also pretty fervent about taking breaks from my pipe sometimes, giving my palate a rest. And so there have been times where I've smoked 6 or 7 bowls a day. When I'm out visiting shops a lot, I might be in 4 or 5 shops a day, and I'll probably fire up a pipe every time I set foot into a shop. That's not unusual for me at all. Unless I'm in some tyrannical place like Washington where you're not allowed to smoke indoors. Or Utah.
Man.
But other times, though, like when I was home during this whole period at home, I was only smoking my pipe 3 or 4 times a week. But part of that is the conscious choice of what I want my pipe to be. If I'm sitting at my desk working and I'm calling retailers and I'm punching in orders and I'm chewing on a pipe that whole time, I may get to the end of the bowl and not even notice the flavor of the tobacco. And that, to me, feels like a terrible waste. The guys at Cornell Diehl, just like the guys at Gawath and Hogarth and McBaron and Sutliff and everybody else, there are people who put a tremendous amount of effort into making this tobacco something really special and unique. And to me, to suck it down like a cigarette without taking the time to really appreciate that represents kind of a loss, kind of a tragic thing. And so when I'm smoking in front of people and talking, of course, I enjoy a pipe as a companion to my conversation. I'm enjoying this pipe right now, but left to my own devices and not around people, I try to make the time that I smoke my pipe something that I make time for, with a book or a movie or hanging out in my backyard with my chickens or whatever it is that I'm doing. I try to only smoke my pipe when I can really sit down and get into enjoying my pipe, make it an occasion.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, and I don't know what it is like for me personally. I smoke more cigars than I do with pipes, but when it comes to smoking the pipe, it has this effect on me that cigars necessarily don't have, which is it slows you down. It makes you more contemplative. It makes you, I don't know, easier to listen. Like, it's interesting. We'll do tasting nights of a cigar here at the shop. We'll have 20 to 24 people around, and we're all smoking. We're talking, conversations going around. But we'll have pipe nights like tomorrow, where everyone's lighting up, and the whole room will just fall silent. And people are concentrating on the smoke and the processes they're having. It's a really interesting experiment. But it's also what makes it so enjoyable for me personally.
Yeah. I think that is in essence, the part of the point of smoking a pipe. If you're going to go, my father, when I first started getting into pipe smoking, and then he's reiterated this story a few times since I got the job, that he worked for Bell Labs back in the early 70s, and one of his coworkers was a pipe smoker. And my father's observation was that this guy would start to tell a story, and he'd put his pipe in his mouth and light it and fiddle with it and then continue telling the story and then fiddle with it a little more and then continue telling the story. And as my dad tells it, the entire time you'd watch him and you'd be fascinated, you'd be entertained, you wouldn't get bored, even though some part of you would have to realize that because of this guy's pipe, it's going to take him twice as long to tell this story as it would if he wasn't smoking. And
Right.
that's it, you know, that's the point. Our whole lives are digital. Our whole lives are fast. This is the most analog thing you could possibly do. And it's a thing that forces you to slow down. It forces you to disconnect from that fervent pace that all of us are running at. And I think that more than anything is contributing to the tremendous resurgence we're seeing in the pipe world today.
Right. And I mean, even on our end here at the shop, it seems like that resurgence that you were alluding to is also in the younger generation. Like it's not just something that, oh, the older gentleman here at the shop likes to smoke his pipe. Like more and more, I'm seeing, at least in our shop, more new pipe smokers and oftentimes younger pipe smokers.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I was born in '85, so I'm sort of an old millennial, but a millennial nonetheless. And I know more people my age who like things like gardening, who like things, you know, more men my age that use safety razors and straight razors and a brush and soap as opposed to the stuff in a can and those 5-blade guys they advertise on TV, right?
Right.
Our generation grew up with computers and pagers and cell phones and internet and advertising and the 24-hour news cycle. I think something that really calls to us is these kinds of things that slow us down. You see guys my age getting interested in things like hiking and working on old motorcycles, tinkering with things, building models. We're hungry for hobbies and interests that get us to kind of quiet down, to kind of shut out the noise for a little while, because that noise is just what we're used to.
Right. No, I know, I completely agree. And kind of as we wrap it up here, and again, Joe, thank you so much for joining us here on the live show. And for those watching, we do have a killer sampler, 3 different aromatics, one of which is the newest blend by Cornell and Diehl that we brought in. I say newest to us, which is the Nutty Irishman. It's an amazing burley-based tobacco, and it's very creamy. It's very buttery. Final question. I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but just curious personally, if you had to choose, and I hate to make you to choose, between 2 amazing brands like Savenelli and Peterson, do you think you would lean either way if you had to choose between the 2?
I love Peterson, and I'm so excited about all the changes my company's made in the last 2.5 years after taking over stewardship of such a great old brand. That having been said, I am a Savenelli guy. I collect Savenelli Punto Oros. I love Savenelli Punto Oros. I really like Italian pipes in general.
Okay.
I love them both. I own them both. I smoke them both. I smoke the heck out of my Peterson pipes for sure. But in my heart of hearts, the Savenelli Punto Oro is about as good as a pipe gets.
Okay. And then finally, out of that, do you lean towards a straight stem or curved stem?
Straight or quarter bent, really. And to me, the perfect pipe shape is a Prince. There are other pipe shapes that I like quite a bit. I own quite a few Canadians and Lavats. I like pots a whole lot as well, but I think a Prince is what happens when somebody takes a pot and turns it into an elegant shape. I love that quarter bend to it, the subtle curve. I love the short, broad bowl. And I prefer my pipes very light. I'm a clencher, but I don't like deeply bent pipes. I like light, mostly straight pipes to clench. That having been said, I own huge pipes. I own small pipes. I own deeply bent pipes like the one you're smoking. You know, when people ask me about how to find that optimal pipe smoking experience, I always tell them the same thing, that you're not really going to figure out what that is for you until you've got two of every one on your shelf. And even when you find your favorites, you're still going to love smoking all the others.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Joe, for joining us. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and hopefully at some point in the near future, we'll have you out here at Oakland Tobacconist as well.
Should be not too long after PCA.
Great.
End of July.
Awesome. Well, and have a good show at PCA. Unfortunately, we won't be able to make it, but I hope that you guys have a great show over there. And thank you so much for turning us on to the new blend by Cornell Diehl. And I have a feeling that we'll probably be introducing more blends by them. It's a phenomenal smoke.
Well, this was a real pleasure, and I really would like to do it again, especially if we can figure out how to get my camera up there, because it'd be nice to be able to show you guys some of this. It'd be nice to be seen, but this
Definitely.
really was a pleasure, and I would really be excited to do this again.
Good. And I mean, if we can figure out the camera next time, maybe we'll have to do a test run. It would be awesome also to see some of the pipe collection that you have told that you've kind of stored up over the years. I mean, it's always awesome to see someone's personal collection.
Oh, yeah. No, I'd love to. I'll get them all polished up so you guys can see them next time.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. You have a great night, and we'll be in touch. Hopefully, we'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks. Thanks for the opportunity. I really enjoyed this.
Great. Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We'll see you next time.